Hello everyone and welcome back to Excel. So what we're going to be looking at now is the Excel interface, okay? So I went ahead and I launched what was called a blank workbook, okay? And it brought me to this screen here, okay? So when you open up your Excel program, you'll see an option for blank workbook. You'll click on that and it will take you to a blank worksheet just like we see here. Now remember that in this case we're using Excel 2013. Whether it's at work or at home, you might use something more recent like 2016 or 2019, or even something older like 2007 or 2010. Now, across the board, it's stayed pretty similar throughout all this time. Just some cosmetic differences, okay? So what you see here, you can pretty much apply very easily to the other version you might be using. So obviously right here is our main work area. This is our worksheet, just like we talked about before, our grid style with our vertical columns identified by letter and our horizontal rows identified by number. Okay, now before we do talk about this a little more, let's just start at the top here and look at a few things at the top of our screen. All right, now some of this stuff might be familiar. That's because it's very consistent amongst other Microsoft Office applications. All right, you'll find a lot of the same things in something like, for example, Microsoft Word. So in this case, we have at the very top, dead center, we have our title bar, and it's going to tell us the name of our file and the name of the program we're using. Okay, so remember that in Excel, our files are called workbooks. So that's why this says book 1. And then it's just also just reminding us that we're using Excel here. So if you change the file name at some point, you'll see that reflected up here in the title bar, that new name. Now underneath the title bar, the title bar, we have the central hub for all of the tools and commands available to us in Excel. All right, and this is called the ribbon. Okay, now the ribbon is organized by these words at the top, and they are called tabs. So you'll see I have a home tab, an insert tab, a page layout tab, formulas, data, review, and view tab. So you simply click on a tab and it gives you a unique set of functions and tools that relate to the name of that tab. I'm going to go back and click on home. Now the home tab is called home because it's basically a home base. All right, Microsoft went ahead and organized all the tools that you're most likely to use most often, and they put them in the home tab. Okay, so you don't have to leave it very often. That's the nice thing about it. Now, within each tab, there is a further level of categorization, and that's by these words at the bottom, and these are called groups. Okay, so for example, I'm in the Home tab right now, and I have a clipboard group, a font group, an alignment group, a number group, styles, cells, and editing. Okay, so the names of the tabs and the names of the groups are there to help you find the tool you're looking for. All right, so throughout the exercises, I will always start with the tab, go to the group, and then the tool. So I'll tell you, for example, go to the Home tab, find the font group, and click on whatever tool I tell you to click on. All right. Now, one more thing about this ribbon is that in many of these groups, okay, you'll see this little diagonal arrow in the bottom right corner, and we call that the dialog box launcher. Okay, so I'm going to look at one of these real quick. For example, I'm in the number group right now. If I click on this little launcher here, it will launch what's called a dialog box, and it's going to arrange the tools available in the number group, but in a more of a text form rather than using these pictures up here. So sometimes the dialog box is a little easier to use, and it will often give you some extra stuff that you don't see up there in the ribbon as well. Okay, so just pointing this out, you can always use these dialog boxes to use instead of if you're not really sure what some of these things do. Okay, I'm going to just go down here and click on cancel and close this. Now remember that because this is a Microsoft based application, okay, simply pointing at the tool will give you a little preview of what it is and oftentimes tell you what it does as well. So if you're unsure, you can always just point at something to see what it is and what it does. Okay, now beneath the ribbon here, we come to our formula bar. Okay, now the formula bar is a good reference point for those formulas I was talking about in the first video. So as I said in the first video, when we put a formula into a cell, we're not going to see the formula in the cell, we're going to see the answer it gives. But if you ever forget what the formula was, you will see it up here in the formula bar. Okay, so just a good reference point. Another good reference point is over here to the left. where it says A1 right here, and this is called the name box. In fact, if I point at it, it does say name box. This is another good reference point because it's just going to remind you which cell is the active cell. Okay, it seems pretty obvious which one is active here, but let me demonstrate something real quick. Sometimes if I type in a lot of data, okay, it overruns the boundary of the cell. Okay, now technically all this data is inside the A1 cell. It's just that it's not fitting in the current dimensions of that cell. Okay, so but I can see that the name box still says A1, so I know that I'm still inside the A1 cell. Okay, so sometimes you might get a little confused. You might think that you're in the D1 cell right now, but you're actually still in the A1 cell, and I know that because it's right there in the name box. Okay, so I just wanted to demonstrate that real quick. Again, a good reference point for you. Now, let's move down here to the main work area. Okay, and again, we have our vertical columns and our horizontal rows. And where they intersect is where we have our active cell. So right now the A1 cell is active. Now look at my cursor, and just as I said in the first video, we have a select cursor, okay, the big white plus sign, and that's what I can use to select a cell to work on, okay? Now when we enter data into a cell, there's no need to really double click on the cell. We can go ahead and just click on the cell and start typing. Okay, it's pretty simple. Now another way to go from cell to cell, once you type in data into a cell, you can click on the cell that you want to go to, or if you want to go down, you can press enter. Okay. Likewise, if you want to go to the right, you can hit tab. Okay, so enter or tab will take you from cell to cell. So sometimes it's a little faster as you're typing in data, but if you still want to just click on the cell instead with your mouse, that's fine too. Either way works just as well. So you click on a cell and just start entering data. Now the only time you will need to double click on a cell is if you need to go back to that cell and edit your data. Okay, so in this case, if I wanted to edit this data, I would need to double click first. Okay, there's the I-beam, there's the blinking insertion point, and then I can go ahead and do whatever it is I need to do. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and click outside of that and then go back. Okay, so again, when you're entering data, you simply click on the cell and just start typing, and that's pretty much it. Okay, now whenever we're selecting a cell, let me just put in some numbers here. Okay, remember, we have our select cursor. Okay, if I want to select a range of cells, just like with Word, you just need to click, hold, and drag to highlight. So I'm going to find that select cursor, that big white plus sign, and I'm going to click, hold, and drag, and now I've highlighted a range of cells. Okay, now, in the first video I talked about the fill handle, so let's see how that looks. So right now the A1 cell is active. If I go to the bottom right corner where that little box is, you'll see the fill handle right there, little black plus sign. Now, what will happen if I was to take this and highlight the cells underneath, it's going to copy and paste that value into the other cells, okay? Same thing here, if I was to highlight this range of cells and then go to the bottom right corner of that range with the fill handle, click and drag, it's going to just copy and paste each of those values down the line. Okay, now I'm just going to hit delete here on my keyboard and I'm just going to delete all those values. And I'm going to click on A1 again just so that that's the only active cell. So just remember, select cursor is to highlight, okay, fill handle is to copy and paste, okay, two very different functions. And you're going to use the one that you need, and I will instruct you as to which one you will need when we get to that point. All right, so that's it for this video. All right, thanks for listening and stay tuned for more.